Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Melissa, and today we're going to be making a jacket cardigan. Now you can make this jacket cardigan using whatever yarn you like, from a 5.5mm hook all the way up to whatever hook size you like, but I've done this up to a 7mm hook. I will leave my notes below. They are just notes. I can't read or write patterns, so hence why these tutorials came about. However, I have had a few people ask me for notes, so I will leave my notes down below and hopefully you can interpret them. What we will be using today are these two yarns blended together. Now you can use it one yarn on its own, you don't have to blend, but the reason why I'm doing this is because I do like this yarn, but I want some luxury with this. I want this to be a super soft, squidgy, yummy jacket cardigan. So what I'm blending it with is this exquisite yarn, which is an alpaca based yarn called Alpaca Blaze. Now it is from Hobbii, and unfortunately all you Australians out there, you will not be able to purchase this anymore from Hobbii because they are no longer supplying to Australia. So if you can find something somewhere else, please do, and blend a super fine fingerling weight fluffy yarn like this alpaca or a mohair with a yarn that you really like. Now I have made this jacket cardigan just using this yarn, and this yarn is Lamia re-tweed. I got this one from Hobium. They do this without the tweedy bits in it, so without all the flex. You can just buy it plain, and that's called Reborn. This takes a 5.5mm hook for this jacket, so you can do this on its own. When I blend the two together, I up the hook size to 6.5. You will see in my notes below that I have instructions where I change it from a 5.5, 6.5 and a 7. So change it to however you like. Alright, so we're using these two yarns. We will be doing the chain in a 7mm hook, and this is a furls hook. And I also use, for the body of the work, we're doing a 6.5, and this is a furls hook as well. You will need a tape measure. This is to measure the armholes and also the length you might require. This is a jacket cardigan, so it is supposed to be long. However, if you do want it shorter, do less stitches. You will obviously need your sewing needle because you need to sew up the sides, and some scissors and some stitch markers. Now I use the stitch markers for counting as well as for marking where I'm going to put the sleeve, for example. You will also need a 5mm hook, and it is a size and a half smaller than the hook you would be doing the body of the work with, and this is the hook you will be doing your cuffs with, so that you can make the cuff cinch in and be tighter around the wrists. Oh, and I nearly forgot, you will need 5 buttons. Big size buttons are ideal, but of course you can use smaller buttons if you like. You just need to adjust the buttonhole size for your buttons. But these buttons are made by my husband, so we have a whole heap of different designs, and I've chosen these ones. Okay, so let's get this project started. Okay, when you have found both ends of your yarns, leave a really long tail, because that is what you're going to be using to sew up the sides. Do a slip knot or start your yarn however you start your yarn, and get your larger hook. So whatever size hook you're deciding to use, do one size larger for your chain. It just makes an even chain and keeps both sides even. And because I want to aim for a 95 centimeter length. So depending on your tension will depend on how many stitches you're doing. So I am going to be basing this on my notes below in the description of a 6.5 hook. So therefore I'm going to be doing 180 stitches in my chain, which will roughly make a 95 centimeter length of my garment. Now, depending on the wool you use, the yarn you use will depend on how stretchy this gets. So I do advise when you do the chain, chuck it over your shoulder, make sure it's even on both sides, and see how that length is. Now, remember, it will stretch slightly when you make up your garment, so allow for that as well. Aim for about 95 centimeters. However, obviously, if you're really, really short, you're going to want less stitches in your chain. If you're really, really tall, you might want more. So I don't put lengths, measurements and that in my tutorials because every single person is different. So what I do is I explain how to adjust to your size. Okay, so now I want to do 180 stitches for this one for a 6.5 millimeter hook. So make sure you count your stitches and make it 180. We have made our very long chain. So as I said, 180 stitches for this cardigan I'm making, which is around about 95 centimeters long. Now we're working lengthways, so you might have been thinking, what does she mean chuck the chain over her shoulder? That's right, because we're working top to bottom, as in lengthways, not across, going up and down. Okay, so I am going to make this as a medium size, which means I'm going to do 20 rows for this section. So this is the front and a third of the back panel that we're working on now. So the right side or the left side, depending which way you turn it, front and a third of the back panel. It'll make sense once we get into it. So what you need to do is change your hook over to your 6.5 or the smaller hook you are using. Now make sure you've got both of your yarns there if you are using the two yarns. Chain one, and we're going to be working in the chain, not the front in the V's. We're going to be working, turn it over, and you'll see there's these loops in the back here. These lumps, we're going to be working in the back of those lumps. Now the reason why, not only does it give a nicer look, but when you come to attaching the waist, the ribbing band around the front, it'll make that a lot easier to work into. When we get there, you'll know exactly what I mean and understand why we've done that. So we've just chained one, so we're going to miss that loopy bit there and go into the second chain, the second loop there. So we're doing half double crochet, so yarn over, going into that loop there. Now grab your yarn and pull it through that loop, and then grab your yarn and pull through all the 3 loops on the hook. So that's your half double crochet. So yarn over, going into that loop there. So that's the back of the stitch. Grab your yarn, pull it through, and then grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. And you'll be doing this in every single stitch as you go, which means you'll end up with 180 stitches. Whoop. It's really hard to do this slowly. So continue doing that, and when you have 180 stitches, come back here and I'll show you what to do next. First row done, and when you have finished your 180 stitches, now just to mention, Whatever length you're deciding to do this with, make sure it can be halved, so therefore an even number of stitches. We will get into that later on, but so my 180 stitches here. At this stage, just chuck the chain over your shoulder, making sure it's even on each side, and that is the length that you would like. Do remember it might stretch slightly depending on the yarn that you are using. So do double check, put it over your shoulder, see if that's the length that you require. Okay, so what we are going to be doing now is continuing half double crochets for 20 rows. I'm doing a medium size here. Do check my description below of the different sizes and how many rows you require. Generally, it is 2 rows more or less depending on the size. So if you're going larger, 2 rows more. If you're going for each size up, if you're going smaller, 2 rows less for each size down. Go to my description and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so we're going to be doing 20 rows here for a medium size. And all you need to do is just continue your half double crochets. So chain 1, turn your work, and then continue your half double crochet straight into that first stitch there. So yarn over, go straight into the top of that first stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through. Then grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook, making sure you've got both yarns on your hook and you've gone through both yarns. Yarn over, straight into the next stitch. Yarn over, straight into the next stitch. Grab your yarn, pull it through, grab your yarn, pull through all the loops on the hook. Yarn over, into the next stitch. And keep doing this until you have come to the end of the row, and I'll show you what I do at the end of each row. Just a tip, at this stage you've got this really long tail getting in your way, so what I do is I actually will wind it up, and then when I've got a little bit of the tail left, take that off my fingers, wrap it around, line it up to the bottom, grab a stitch marker, and I put the stitch marker through the ball, the mini ball, through my work and back through the mini ball. And there we go. It's safely and secure and won't bother me anymore. We are coming to the end of the row. So last 2 stitches. Stitch there, and then the last stitch of your row will be right in the very corner. So right there. That's row 2 finished. Chain 1, turn your work, and as I said before, start your row right in that first stitch. And keep going. Okay, so this is now row number 3. We need to do 20 rows in total for our size medium. And when you have finished those rows, or the amount of rows you need for your size, come back here and I will show you what to do next. We have now finished doing our 20 rows, and you should have a very long strip of crocheted yarn. Okay, so 20 rows is what I did, so hopefully you finished whatever the amount of rows you have elected to do. And now what you need to do is mark the halfway point. So half whatever it is amount of stitches you had, and hopefully you did the even amount of stitches, because otherwise it's not going to work. I have 180 stitches here, so therefore I went to 90. And I put a stitch marker at 91. Now what we are going to do is work up straight to that stitch marker. Now I always go the one after because I work up to before the stitch marker. It's just the way that I like to do it. So if you rather have it in the actual stitch that you have to finish at, feel free. I like to have it after it. So what you need to do now, turn your work and work half double crochets all the way along up to your stitch marker. And when you get to the stitch before the stitch marker, as I said before, for me, I put my stitch marker in the stitch after the stitch required. So on the 91st stitch, but I'm stopping at the 90th stitch. Then when you've stopped there, chain 1, turn your work and continue doing your rows. Now this is the back panel we are working on, and for the size that I am doing, which is the medium, I am going to do 17 rows. Please check out my notes down below in the description for what you might need for your cardigan or your jacket. But of course, trial it on and see how that works for you. As I said before, every person is a different size, so please do try it on as you go to make sure this is the size that suits you, or the size suggestions and the amount of rows and that I give down below, to see that it suits you. All my patterns are completely adaptable to you as an individual person. Okay, so for me, I'm going to do 17 rows, and I will meet you back here when I have finished my 17 rows. Now we have finished the back panel there. You can see that's one side. There's the back panel. We have to do the second side. It's quite big now. So what we need to do now, I've done my 17 rows. Whatever number of rows you decide to do here, make sure that it is an odd number of rows that you are doing and that you have finished the last row so that it is facing inwards. So this is one side, this is the neck, and then your row must finish in the next space. Now what we are going to do is change our hook to the larger size, and we are going to chain the same amount of stitches as you had here. We will be chaining here to bring it up to the starting chain length. For me, that was 180. So I'm going to get my other hook, which was my 7mm hook, and I will be chaining 90. There is my chain of 90, and now we need to change our hook back to our smaller hook, so my 6.5, then chain 1, missing that chain 1 that I've just done, going into the next chain on the back, same as how you started the whole project. So half double crochet, yarn over, straight into that back loop, grab your yarn, pull it through, grab your yarn, pull through all 3 loops on the hook, and then next back loop, yarn over into the back of the chain, yarn over into the back of the next chain, half double crochet, and keep doing this all the way down your chain. Coming to the end of the chain, and the last couple of stitches can be a little tricky only because you might see that they look hidden. So that's the last stitch of the chain, but sometimes that can get missed. So do double check that you've got them all. Right, here's Mr. Dodgy. And then when you've done all the chains, just continue on with the row as normal to the end, and that should be your 180 stitches. This is row number 1 of the other front panel and rest of the back. When you have finished this row, just double check that you have all of your 180 stitches of row number 1 of this front panel bit that we're doing the second side. Okay, so that is row number 1 with the chain of my second panel done. So chain 1, turn your work, and then continue the same amount of rows as you did as the first panel. So for me, that is 20 rows. So I will meet you back here after I have finished those 20 rows. We have now finished our 20 rows on the other side. So there's the first panel, and we have finished the body of our jacket. So what we need to do now is to end off, but leave a really long tail, because that is what you are going to be sewing up the side with, which is what we'll be doing next. So I'll get myself a long tail. What I normally do is just measure it up to the side that I've just done and snip it off. Then just bring it through and pull, 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 pull. Now we have finished the body of our cardigan. We now need to measure where the armholes are going and sew up the sides to the armholes. So you'll need to fold your garment in half. And pick a side that you think should be the inside and the outside. So normally what I do is I put all my tails on one side and I class that as my inside. So I want my inside to face out at the moment because I'm going to sew up the side, and of course I want the sewing to be on the inside and you can't see it on the outside. So once you have folded your garment in half, and you can see there's one half there, there's one front panel there, there's the other front panel, and there's your neck. I often will get, just so I can remind myself which is the inside and which is the outside, the inside part, which I'm now facing out, I go to the neck and I put a stitch marker, and I have the lumpy bit of the stitch marker on the inside, so it will be facing outside now because I've got it inside out, and then I won't get myself all lost with where I'm at. Okay, now the next thing you need to do is put it to the side. So this is one side, and what we are going to do is measure, this is the top of the shoulder, and measure down 22 centimeters. Here is one side. It doesn't matter which side you start on. So I've just picked a side. Make sure that it is folded exactly where you want it. It's lined up. So I've got the bottom here and that it's lined up. And it's all even, and then get your tape measure and measure 22 centimeters. So that's about there. I'm going to get my stitch marker and just put it straight in like so. Okay, I double check. There is my 22. Okay, I'm happy with that, and then I just start sewing up the sides. Now you could do the other side the same, but what I do is I sew up the side, and then once that's sewn up, I count how many stitches I have around here, and then I will sew up the other side to a point where I think I'm okay, and then I count the same amount of stitches and finish up, so I have exactly the same amount of stitches in this arm as I do the other arm. Now if you think that is way too big a hole for your arm, make it shorter. If you think it is too small, make it bigger. But I have done 101 jumpers and cardigans with this size measurement, and it has never not fit somebody yet. So 22 centimeters works perfectly for me, but please adjust it to what suits you. Okay, so the next thing we do is we take our rolled up, or take your yarn that you've set aside at the start or the end, get your your wool needle, and simply start sewing up the side. Now I am not the best sewer. I actually really hate sewing. I am not good at it at all. I was not born to be a sewer. But whatever technique you decide that you're going to use, just keep it the same, obviously, for both sides and throughout. What I simply do, you can see it's really easy for this sewing up side because you have the stitches and they're pretty obvious where to go. So what I do to keep it really nice is I work from the inside of this stitch to the inside of the corresponding stitch on the other side of the garment. And then I just work to the next stitch and go on the inside and the inside of that one, and keep going. And I just work my way all the way along until I get to the stitch marker, and then I stop, I bind off, finish up however you finish up your sewing, and then just repeat the same process on the other side. However, I'm going to change it because I'm going to sew up my side first to where I think is approximate. Often I will count the stitches to get it to here and be rough, and then leave it, count the amount of stitches in my sleeve, and then just keep working up or adjusting until I've got exactly the same amount of stitches on this side and the other side. When you have done that, come back here and we'll do the sleeve. We'll work on the sleeve next. We have now finished sewing up the seams. There's the seam there, and that's the outside. The inside, you can see, looks very different and has a different look to it. Quite neat though. So that is the inside, nice and flat. And there you go, there is the armhole. So the next step is to create the arm. Now I've already done one arm, and it's time for me to do the second arm. So anything that you do for this arm, make sure you note it down so that you can repeat exactly the same for your second arm. Now the reason why I say that is because everybody is different. Every garment that you make will be different, and sewing this up doesn't mean that you've got them both exactly the same. Sometimes we just don't. So you need to know exactly what it is you did with your first arm for your second arm. So let's get the arms done. Okay, so for your arm, you are going to be sticking with your 6.5mm hook, and you will be starting your arm at the top of the seam there. So this is the bottom of your armhole, this is the shoulder of your armhole. We're going to be starting at the crease there, and you're going to be starting in the first stitch that you come to. Now this is really easy to see because you can see our stitches quite clearly there. So you're basically doing your first stitch on top of the first stitch that you come to. So just get your hook in there Get your yarn, start off however you want to start off. I advise doing a little bit of a tail because you might need to sew up a little bit of a gap down here. Sometimes you can't get it absolutely perfect. Now I know with my first sleeve I did 44 stitches. So I've got to make sure that for my second sleeve I've got 44 stitches. So what you need to do, as I said, put your hook in, get your yarn, start your yarn however you start your yarn, and then start doing half double crochets into every stitch around this sleeve area, which is simply just doing your half double crochets. Now what I do is when I get to around about 10 stitches, I get a stitch marker. And the reason why I do that is because, okay, I've done a few stitches and you can see how it blends in quite nicely, and therefore when it comes to counting your rows, that's going to be quite hard. So I grab a stitch marker and I put the stitch marker on that first row to tell me that that was row number 1. Okay, so continue working around to get however many stitches it is that you have on your first row. I know from my first sleeve it's 44, so I have to do 44 stitches. So when you get back to the end here on the other side of your sleeve here, I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so I've done my stitches around my sleeve there, and as I said, I've already done a sleeve and I had 44 stitches. So I've done 44 stitches, but you'll notice that I will end up with a big gap. And that is absolutely fine because I've got my long tail and I can sew that up quite neatly to close up that gap. So this is why it's really important that you count your number of stitches that you start off with on your first sleeve so you can make it identical for the second sleeve. Now we have done the first row of our sleeve, we need to join the row together. So all you need to do is go to that first stitch, go to the top of the first stitch, put your hook straight into that first stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through that stitch and through the loop on your hook. Chain 1, turn your work. And then you'll be doing half double crochets into the top of each stitch. Now miss that first hole there so you can see that it looks like a stitch there. Miss that and go into this one right here. So do your half double crochets. Now my advice, do count every single row. It is so easy to lose where you are up to because you might have put a stitch in the wrong spot, missed a stitch. It can get confusing, so count every stitch of every row for your sleeve. So once you have done this second row of your sleeve, I will meet you back here to show you how you finish off that row. Okay, doing the last couple of stitches. So remember, we're doing the last stitch in the same stitch as the first where you did your chain. So right in there. And then we slip stitch the row together. Chain 1, turn your work, and this is row 4 of the sleeve. And missing that first stitch there, going into the second stitch, doing your 4th row. Okay, the last couple of stitches for this round 4. So once again, going into that stitch where we started, and then join the row together. Chain 1, turn your work. So that's our 4 stitches, 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5th row we are going to decrease. So there is that stitch there, the first stitch that we miss, go into this stitch, so yarn over, going into that second stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through. Then the next stitch there, go straight into that next stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, and then grab your yarn and pull through all the loops that are on the hook. And that is your decrease. So show you that again. So we miss that first stitch. We yarn over, go into the second stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through. Going into the third stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook, and there's your decrease. So that ends up being stitch number 1. So counting, I should end up with 43 stitches, but I'm going to do 10 stitches first. 1, 2, 3, 9, 10. And I'm going to grab a stitch marker. If I can find where it is, there it is. And I'm going to put a stitch marker in here, and that tells me that this is the 5th row of this lot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my 5th rows are going to be decrease. Now we're going to do 6 lots of this, and decreasing on the 5th row of each lot. So therefore I should end up at the end of my 6th lot of these 5 with 38 stitches. So whatever number you started off with, when you minus the 6 decreases off it, that should be the number of stitches you should end up with at the end of your sleeve before you're doing the cuff. So this is lot number 1, and I should end up with 43 stitches. 41, 42, 43. So we join our row together, chain 1, turn, and continue doing the next lot of rows. So now this will be row 1 of my next 5. So I do another 4 rows without a decrease. So there should be 43 stitches for me on each row now. So do your next 4 rows and come back here at the beginning of your 5th row, and we'll run through that decrease again. I have finished my next set of 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4th row of that second set of 5. So now I'm up to my decrease row. So what I need to do is join this 4th row together. So doing my slip stitch, chain 1, turn your work, and we're doing that decrease. So missing that first stitch there, yarn over, straight into that next stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, then go into the 3rd stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, and then grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. Stitch number 1. Now this will reduce my count to 42. So I need to count and see that I have 42 stitches. 41 and 42. So joining my row together, doing that slip stitch again. Yeah, chain 1, turn your work, and remember, put your stitch marker in on that 5th row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my stitch marker. And there is my second set of 5 done. So I need to do another 4 to make six sets of 5 rows. So now I'm going to do another 4 rows without a decrease. And then on the 5th row, decrease again. So on and so forth until I have 6 sets of 5 with the decrease on the 5th row. Now that'll bring me to 38 stitches. So when I get to that last row of my 6th group of 5, I'll meet you back here and show you what to do next. I have now finished my 6 lots of 5 with the decrease where you see the stitch marker. So that's my first row. So that's decrease there, 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 and there. And my final decrease is here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I haven't joined the rows together because now what we're going to do is we're going to change out this hook for our smaller hook. I'm going to be using my 5mm hook to do the cuff. So we need to join the row together like we have been, so a slip stitch. So straight in there and slip stitch, and then chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now at this point, what I do is I'm going to put markers, stitch markers, in at different points around and as evenly as possible. So fold your cuff in half, get one of your stitch markers and put it opposite where your chain is. So that will be the halfway mark on the other side, and just put your stitch marker there. Then get your cuff and go the other way so that your chain and your stitch marker line up, and put a stitch marker at this end and this end. So one at that end and one at this end. Okay, so these stitch markers are going to be where you decrease again, and I'll show you that when we get there. But first of all, let's go back to that chain, and you need to have your sleeve facing outwards, and let's go to that chain. So you've already chained 10, chain an extra 1, and we're going to be doing ribbing now. So what you need to do is miss that chain you just did and go into the next chain and going into that V. You're going straight into the V and heading out. Grab your yarn, pull it through, and then grab your yarn and pull through the 2 stitches on the hook. So you're doing a single crochet into the middle of the V. So going to the next stitch, go straight into that V, grab your yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn, pull through the 2 loops on the hook. So straight into that V, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn, pull through the 2 loops on the hook. And keep doing that all the way down. Now I do advise that you count every stitch. Once again, this is a very easy place to just lose a stitch somewhere. So I always count every single row that I do. So we're putting them. Now let's double check we've got our 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Excellent. So this is the first place where we're going to decrease. Now the reason why we're decreasing around the cuff is because I want that cuff much tighter. So you can see on this side of this sleeve that has come in quite a lot from the body of the sleeve. So bringing it in so you have a nice tight cuff. And that's why we decrease the hook down dramatically from a 6.5 to a 5. And we bring in and decrease the cuff, so we're bringing it in nice and tightly and nice and snug fit. So how do we do that decrease? Well, what we're doing is we're going into the first stitch and we just do grab the yarn, pull it through and pull through the loop on the hook. Go to the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through and pull it through the loop on the hook. So we're just doing like slip stitches, and then third one, pull through and through again. So we've done 3. 1, 2, 3. So count back those 3s. 1, 2, 3, and go back into this stitch like so. And then do your single crochets again up the way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that's row number 2 done with your decrease there. Then chain 1, turn your work, and then missing that chain, go into the that next stitch there and continue doing your rib stitch, your single crochet into the V's. So you always, for every row for this stitch, you're going into that V. So you go into it and away from you, into the V and away from you, and do your single crochet in and away. So I'm going to double check I've done my 10 stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yep. Now this time, and every time until you get up to a stitch marker, you will be doing 2 slip stitches. So I've done, the next one is this one here. So go in and do your slip stitch, 1, 2, count back 2, 1, 2. So I'm going into this third one here. So count back 1, 2, and go into that one, and do your rib stitch, single crochet, back up. Check I've got my 10 stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Awesome. Chain 1, turn your work, continue down. So when you're at the end of the row, we're going to slip stitch 2. So 1, 2. So 1, 2. Count back 2, 1, 2, and in the third one, you start your row again. Coming to the end of the row, chain 1, turn your work, going back down now. Remember, skip that chain, don't go into that chain. End of the row, and we're going to do 2 again. 1 slip stitch, second slip stitch, go back 2, 1, 2, into the third, starting that row again. So we'll repeat those 2 rows the same. So we're at the end of those next 2 rows and we've reached the stitch marker. Now because we've reached the stitch marker, we're now going to do the decrease, which means going 3 slip stitches. So 1, 2, 3 slip stitches instead of the 2. So take your stitch marker out and do 3 slip stitches. So 1, 2, 3. Count back 3, 1, 2, 3, and in the fourth we're starting our row again. So I've just done the next 2 rows and I'm back at the sleeve edge again. So this time, because we've just done our decrease, we're now up to our regular 2 slip stitches. So go 1, 2. And then continue going back to into your third, go and do the next 2 rows. So keep doing that all the way around your sleeve, remembering that when you get to your stitch marker, that you do 3 decreases. Now, if you're doing when your rows come up to and you're there on the next row and you've got these 2, the next 2 rows to do your slip stitch, wherever your stitch marker lands, if it lands in that, go 1, 2, 3, take out your stitch marker there. Okay, so when you come to your stitch marker, do 3 slip stitches. When you come, otherwise you're doing 2 slip stitches. All right, so continue your way around back to the beginning, and when you get back here, I will show you what to do next. When you are nearing the end of your cuff and you're coming close to the joining them together, the 2 sides, if you have 2 or 3, so if you, when you, 1, 2, 3, 3 is still in the, counted as the, even the chain there. So you can see 1, 2, 3, or 1, let's say it finished there and I got 1, 2. This is where so maximum up to 3 stitches on the sleeve, okay, do your slip stitches. So 2 or 3, do your slip stitches. If you have 4, then just do another 2 rows, okay. I hope that makes sense. Now you'll see what I mean. You'll go 1, 2, 3, and I don't mind having to do that because that means I've got another decrease and I'm bringing in the cuff a lot more. Okay, now do your normal 1, 2, 3, because I did 3 slip stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do this row up to the edge of my cuff. And that's where I want to finish doing my rows. Now the reason why is because I want to join it from the top down. It makes a much nicer and neater edge, and you don't have the tail to sew in up here. Sewing in the tail down here is much neater. So now we're going to join together. We're going to join via slip stitch. So go straight into that first stitch there, grab a yarn and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. Now go into the next stitch, and what you want to do is find the next stitch and go from the outside of your next stitch and the opposite side to that stitch there. Grab a yarn and pull through the loops on the hook. So going on the outside of the next stitch, marrying up with the stitch on the other side, so it should be the next one down, and then bring your yarn through all the loops on the hook and repeat this all the way down. Alright, looks like I've got to the end of that. So now what I want to do is snip the end off like so, and then I'm just going to pull that straight through. And then I will bring that through to the other side. And then I will sew that in nice and neatly there. And I will sew in any of my ends. And you'll remember on my sleeve, I have what looks like a big gap there. So what I will do is I will just nice and neatly sew that in exactly the same way as I sewed in the hem originally. Okay, so once you've done all that, what you need to do is repeat that sleeve again on your other side. I also will suggest that you line up when you finish your sleeves. Don't end off, just line them up and just double check that they're the right size, that you've done them evenly and they're the right length, right width and everything. Make sure you take a note of everything you did with this sleeve so you can do it for the other sleeve. When you've done that, I will meet you back here and show you how to do the ribbing edge of the front. Okie dokie, so now that we have finished the sleeves, the next thing we need to do is place where our buttonholes are going to go. So I've got this facing outwards. This is the right side of the garment. I can tell it's facing outwards because I've marked the inside with a stitch marker so I don't get myself all lost. Put it on. So put this on and then line up across your bust. Where it sits nicely across your bust, put a stitch marker. Then go 5 rows above the bottom, put another stitch marker. That's where 2 of your buttonholes are going to go. Now to place your next buttonhole, what I do, and I don't know if you're aware of this trick, there is a button stitch marker here, stitch marker there, put a finger on each, and then close your eyes and bring your fingers together. That should be the midway point between the two. Now this is just a guesstimate because we'll refine it as we're working. So grabbing another 2 stitch markers, I'm going to do that again. So fingers on either side, eyes closed, and bring them together. That should be the midpoint there, roughly. And doing the same again. Stitch marker there, close your eyes, bring the fingers together, and that should be the midpoint there. So that's very rough. Okay, so what you then will need to do is just do a rough count between them to make sure they're even. If they're not, just adjust your stitch markers till they are even. When you have done that, come back here and I will get you started on doing the ribbing edge. All my stitch markers are now placed in the correct spot, and just for your information, I did 13 stitches between the stitch markers, or 14 to including the stitch marker. Okay, so now I've done that, what I now will do, make sure that you've got the cardigan still facing the front, put your hook into the first stitch there. Now, start your yarn however you start your yarn. And now you want to chain 10. By the way, you'll use back to your 6.5 hook. Sorry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Chain 1. And then you're doing your rib again, the same as you did for your cuffs. So just as a refresher, you're going straight into that V, not the chain that you just did, but the next one. Grab your yarn, pull it through, and grab your yarn and pull through the 2 loops on the hook. Going into the next stitch, doing your slip stitch, your single crochet, and single crochet all the way down. Now remembering to count on every stitch because you can easily lose yourself. See, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then what we are doing is remembering we're going up. So slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2, and then doing your rows the same as you did for your cuff. Keep doing that until you come to your stitch marker. I've now reached the stitch marker, so what I am going to do here is I'm still going to do my same slip stitches, 1, 2, and then going back to 1, 2, going to the next stitch, and I'm going to work 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is where I might play around. So I don't know how big the buttonhole I need to be. So let's go 2 chains. So chain 2, miss 2, 1, 2, and let's put a stitch on the 3rd stitch in. So there we go, I have a buttonhole. Now I need to check my button is going to fit this buttonhole, and I'm going to pull it through, and you want it tight, but you don't want it too tight that there's no way it's going to come through. Okay, so I'm going to go back and just check that 3 wouldn't be the better way. So I'm going to go back, and I've taken out another stitch, so now I've got 1, 2, 3, and now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and now I'm going to miss 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put a stitch into the 4th stitch here. I'm going to do 2 stitches just so I know, and then I get the button and I'm going to push it through. Now that's a bit tricky because that went through really easily for me, and I think that might be a bit too easy, you know, because you don't want it to pop out. So I might go back. I actually quite like, if you position it, I quite like the positioning there. I rather have the positioning on my band to be in the middle rather than over here. So I quite like that. So I'm going to keep my 3 stitches here. And I'm going to, yeah, I like that. And I'm going to take that off, but I'm going to leave 2 chains. So I've got 1, 2, 3 stitches, my 2 chains, which means I need to only skip 2 stitches down here, 1, 2, and go into this one here. 1, let's do 2. Okay, so there's my buttonhole. And yeah, I think I'm happy with that being tighter. Yeah. I mean, majority of people aren't going to actually undo the buttons because it's easy to just throw it over your head. But I'd rather have a tight button than a loose button. So I'm going to leave it at that. So once you've sussed out how big your buttonholes are, just remember to do the same thing for every buttonhole. So for me, it's going to be doing the 3 stitches, then chaining 2 and missing 2 underneath, and then continue 5 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I chain 1, turn my work, and then I need to do 10 stitches along the other side, including that chain. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, lose a stitch there, 4, 5. Then when you're at the chain, that would be a stitch just in there, but do the stitches in your chain exactly the same way. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, and then you can take your stitch marker out, and then you're doing your slip stitches like normal. So 1, 2, and repeat as normal until you get to your next stitch marker. So back up we go. Okay, keep doing that, and I'll meet you back at the next stitch marker just to run through that buttonhole one more time. We're now up to the next stitch marker, so you remember that you do your slip stitches the same as normal, 1, 2, and then do the first 3 stitches as normal. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2. I'm going to miss 2, 1, 2, and then do the rest of my stitches, the 5 remaining stitches as normal. 2, 3, 4, 5. Then chain 1, turn your work, and doing the same all the way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, and I've come to that chain, so I just do the stitches the same as always into that chain, 1, 2, and then the 3 remaining stitches as normal, 1, 2, 3. Remove your stitch marker and keep going as normal. 1, 2 slip stitches, going back to 1, 2, and there we go, next stitch. And there are 2 buttonholes done. So keep doing that all the way around. And so you've got 3 more buttonholes to do, 1, 2, 3, and then continue working your band all the way around. Now when you come to the neck, you will see that the neck doesn't have the stitches nicely along like that. The neck actually goes on top of the rows. So I am up to the neckline now with my ribbing edge, and I just wanted to show you where I put my start, you know, when you're doing the slip stitches. So what I do is, that's where my last slip stitch went. You can see that there. I miss the next hole there and I go into that hole there, and that's where I'll put the slip stitch. And then I miss that hole there and I go into the next hole there, and that's where I put the slip stitch. So I don't do it in every single hole, I do it alternate holes, and you can see how that is looking there. If you do every single hole, you're going to have quite a wide band, if that makes sense. So I do alternate holes. So when I come back down again for my next lot, I'll miss that hole and go into that hole, miss that hole, go into that hole, and then the next lot, so on and so forth. So I hope that makes sense, and you know what I am talking about. So at the top of each row, do a slip stitch and then continue your ribbing. Alright, when you have finished that, I will meet you when you get to the end here and show you how I place the buttons. Then there are the pockets to do if you wish to do pockets, and we will be finished our garment. So I will see you back here when you have finished your ribbing. We have now finished the band. So, it's getting really big now. So what we need to do now is to sew on the buttons. So what you need to do is line up where your buttons are going to go, and I do it individually. So I get my button and I do it one at a time. So get your yarn needle and snip off a bit of your wool or your yarn, and I fold it in half, form a loop down the bottom, and slip the 2 ends onto my needle. Now I come over here and I count how many rows I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5th row is where my buttonhole is. So I'm going to go over to this side and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row. That's where my buttonhole should be. So I line it up just to see that I'm correct. And I think there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So because I already know that I went in 3 stitches on the other side when I was making the buttonhole, I'm going to go in 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to put my needle in on the 4th stitch, because it was 1, 2, 3, and then we did the 2 missed stitches for the buttonhole. So I'm going to go in the 4th stitch, get my button, make sure you're doing it the right side. You don't want to sew your buttons in on the wrong side. And then go through the other side, go through the next stitch that is there, catch the loop that you've just created, and then proceed to do as many stitches as you can to fill up your buttonhole. And I know when I'm done when it's really tight. There we go. And then just end off. And I just go in the back several times. Just keep it neat and try and make it so that it's never going to come out. Find your scissors, snip off the end. And then I just repeat the same process. So that was my first button. Obviously make sure that you have it in the right spot. Lined up right. And I see how it overlaps quite nicely? Yeah. Alright, so the next one, I take it back out. And I get my next piece of yarn. Pair that. Okay, so between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and on the 13th. So going one above here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So should be this one here. So just line it up. Yep. Hopefully you can see my needle there coming through. So that is the correct one. So once again, going in 1, 2, 3, put my needle in there, get my button, put my into the second stitch along, finding the loop on the back, pull it through. Just double check that that is lined up, and it has, because I can see my button there. And then bring it through and keep sewing your button on. And keep doing that for each button until you have all 5 of your buttons sewn on. Buttons are now sewn on. Please disregard the size. It is not my size, but I just wanted to show you what it was like with the buttons. Now it is time to do the pockets. Now you only need to do the pockets if you want pockets on your jacket. So what we do is our ribbing first, and then we do the body. It is a very, very simple rectangle. So let's get these pockets started. You'll be using your 6.5mm hook for this. So the hook that you use for the body of your work, and make a very, very long tail, because this is what you will be sewing your pocket onto your jacket with. Once you have your very, very long tail, do a slip knot. Put that on your hook and do 10 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are doing the rib stitch, And so it's the same as what you did for the cuffs and the edging. So just chain an extra one and do your single crochets into the middle of each V on your chain. And we're just continuing our rib, chain one. Remember to count all your stitches and make sure you've got 10, and keep ribbing, and you will be doing 18 rows. We are aiming to get the pocket 15 centimeters wide and about 19 centimeters long. This is not set in stone, so do the pocket that you feel is comfortable for you. All right, I'm going to leave you to finish these 18 rows, and I will meet you back here when you have finished your ribbing. When you have done your 18 rows of rib, make sure you finish your last rib row opposite where your tail is. Okay, and now what we want to do is create our pocket bit. And so what we need to do is chain one, and we're going into the top of the stitch, the top of the rows here. So you want to create 18 stitches. So doing half double crochets, just go into the top of each row. So what I generally do is put 2 stitches in each of the gaps here. So work your way along, creating 18 stitches. I've created my 18 stitches, and this is row number 1. So I'm going to put a stitch marker there just so I'm not going to lose myself, and I know that that is row number 1. I'm going to do 12 rows in total. This should make it about 19 centimeters long, so it should look like this. 19 centimeters long, and it should be about 15 centimeters wide, and that's a nice size for my hand to go in. And you know, yeah, it's just a nice fit. See what works for you. If you want a bigger pocket, do a bigger pocket. If you want a smaller pocket, do it smaller. Okay, I'm going to do my 11 more rows, so 12 rows in total, and I will meet you back here when I finish that. When you have finished your 12 rows, measure it up with your other pocket just to make sure that they are the same, and even lay it on top and check that you've got the same size. When you've verified that both your pockets are the same, you finish off and sew in your ends. Okay, the cardigan's getting a little big to show you in the camera, but put on your cardigan and put your hands down by your side and see where they sit comfortably. When you have established that, place your pocket where you feel that fits nicely on your hand. Then put the stitch marker at the top of your pocket where you placed it, and that is where the top edge will go for your pocket. Now make sure that your tail end is the end that is at your stitch marker. And because you've got your lines going down, it makes it easy to where you are going to sew along the edge here all the way down. Now remember, this is a ribbing top edge here, and the reason why we ribbed it is so that it would match the ribbing on the edge here. And make sure you pull it out so that it is level. So this side's going to be relatively easy, but when you get to the other side, can you see there? It's going to come out to here, and so therefore I'm going to have to pull the ribs out like that when I sew it on. Sewing it on Sew it on any which way you feel free. I am not going to show you how to sew this on because I really am not good at sewing, so I don't want you to follow me and my poor sewing, but I will sew on both pockets and I will show you what the finished product does look like. I have attached one pocket, and to marry up the pocket to be exactly the same on the other side, count the number of rows in, count the number of rows up, put a stitch marker there, and then place your pocket on there and just double check that it's in the right spot and then start sewing. Now I need to admit to you that I made a boo-boo, and I only realised when I placed the pocket on. The stripes are going the wrong way. They should be going that way. So to correct that, it's a bit late for this one now, but in the future I have written the correct way in the notes below in the description. But to give you a verbal rundown, start off with your half double crochets, do I think it was 14 stitches, and you want to do 16 rows on your 14 stitches, and then so it should end up looking like that. And then you want to do this bit up the top here. So what you will be doing is after you have finished your 16 rows, you do a chain of 10 plus 1, and then work your rib stitch this way up. And you'll do 18 rows along here to do your rib stitch for here. So it should end up looking, if you can visualize, like that, with the rib and these going the right way. If you do like it looking like that, then keep doing it that way. But my apologies, I didn't realize until I went to sew it on that I went, oh, I did it the wrong way around. Oh well, we live and learn. But I thought I'd be open and honest with you. You can do it the other way, and just follow my directions in the description below. And there we go. The cardigan is all finished. I will show you it with it on. I won't have it closed up because it's not the size for me, but hopefully you'll get an idea of what it looks like on. Thank you everybody for joining me in this tutorial. It is a bit of a long one, but I hope you get a lot of pleasure out of it and you get a really nice jacket cardigan for yourself with it. And if you would like to see any of my other tutorials, please check out my playlists and anything else. I've got so much on there. If you'd like to support this channel, please feel free to click the super thanks down the bottom, or go to my Buy Me a Coffee website. The links are all down below. Thank you everybody again for joining me, and I hope you have a fantastic day and happy crocheting, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye everyone!